Good morning, guys. Today we're going to be talking about 10.9 equations of circles. This time we have centers that are not at the origin. So that's the big difference between 10.8 and 10.9 is that this time centers are not at the origin. So just a quick reminder, this is the last lesson of Phase 2. Be sure to complete your assessment for credit on these things. As long as you complete the assessment, you'll get some points for it. Print summer packet for Honors Algebra 2 if you need it. I highly encourage you guys to get that taken care of, and I hope that you guys have a great summer. I'm going to try and get some extra Algebra 2 practice on here for you guys next week. There shouldn't be any assignments due next week or anything like that after week 7. Week 8 should just kind of be catching up on anything, making sure that your grades are good to go, and if you have any questions, you let us know. But of course, make sure that you guys do print out that summer packet. Mr. Hendrickson will be looking for that next year. And make sure that you also complete it. I am going to try and post some more again, just because I want to make sure that you guys are as prepared as possible. Of course, if you don't do it, you don't do it. If you do it, you're probably going to be in a much better position when we get back come August or whenever they send us back. But I just want to let you guys know that. Thank you guys for the great year. I do miss teaching you guys a lot. I've missed this last quarter a bit. But I'm sure that you guys will be great. Feel free to visit me at any time that you guys want to. I'm always happy to see you guys after. Other than that, let's go ahead and get started. So, the equation of a circle with center at HK and radius R. So, center HK, well, H is just X. H is just X. K is just Y. That's all that's happening here. So, H comma K is the center of the circle. Now, in our equation, we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And in this last video, we had h equaling x subset c, center, x center, and k is equal to the center of the circle for the y coordinate. So these h and k are just replacing x center and y center. So these are just the coordinates for the center of the circle. Now, the big thing that you guys need to be careful in this section is be careful of the subtraction signs. As we notice, we have negative h and negative k. However, h comma k is the center. So we're going to have to be switching our signs a little bit here. And the reason why this occurs is because a difference of squares, which we'll cover today as well. It goes into something from Algebra 1 that you guys should remember. We covered it a little bit ago this semester as well. Granted, it's one of the more difficult things in Algebra 1 to get through, but we'll manage. All right, so write the equation and graph a circle with center at 3, negative 2, and radius 6. So first off, h is 3, k is negative 2. If I were to write this with this equation up here, let me go ahead. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, with h being 3 and k being negative 2, we end up with x minus 3 squared plus y minus negative 2 squared equals, well, our radius is 6, so 6 squared. This will leave us with, I'm going to go ahead and write this over here so I have a little bit more space. So we'll leave us with x minus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 36. Now, just a heads up, on your homework, these are always going to be plus. I made it so that these are plus right away so that you guys don't have different answers and you're not continually getting wrong answers on here. So, in fact, if I were to answer this on the homework, it'd be x plus negative 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 36. Because again, on the homework, these are always going to be pluses. So I want to make sure that you know, oh, I'd plug in negative 3 here in this case. I'd plug in positive 2 here in this case. Just to make sure that we're on the same page. Now from here, let's go ahead and graph this. First off, our center is at 3, negative 2. So I can go ahead and mark that. 3, negative 2. This point right here. And then our radius is 6, so I'd just go 6 away from this point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now do that in each direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 6. 3, 6. And all of a sudden I have these points up here, these 5 points with the center included. From here, these outside points, these blue points, I'm just going to go ahead and draw my circle with. It doesn't need to be a perfect circle. Granted, mine is nowhere near perfect until I go ahead and draw this. And it's still not perfect, but we can see it here. So we now have this circle with center at 3, -2, radius at 6. So graphing, the only thing that's different is I move my center. Everything else is the same. With the equation, though, it's quite a bit different because it's no longer x squared plus y squared. It's keeping track of these negative signs and also making sure that we just plug these numbers in. Always remember that in the parent function, this function right up here, it's always going to be both negative inside the parentheses. That's the biggest thing. If you can get that, then you're good to go. All right, let's try this one out. Go ahead and try this one out. We're looking for the radius, the center, the diameter, the circumference, and the area. With circumference and area, I'd prefer on your homework if you guys rounded to the nearest tenth. And then with everything else, it should be whole numbers for us. So first off, our radius. Let's go ahead and find our radius first. Well, if I look at this, r squared is equal to 9. So our radius must be 3. For our center should be h comma k. Which means if I have a -1 here, well, that would be +1. I'm just taking the opposite values. This is +4. Oops, sorry. If that was +4, it would be -4. So our center is the point 1, -4. We already said our radius is 3. Next, our diameter. Well, if our radius is 3, our diameter should be double that, so 2 times r, which is equal to 2 times 3, which is 6. And again, I got that 3 from right up here. After that, our circumference. Well, circumference is equal to 2 pi r. So circumference is equal to 6 pi in this case. Our radius is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times pi is 6 pi. And then lastly, our area is equal to pi r squared. Our radius in this case is 3 once again, so we have pi times 3 squared, which is equal to 9 pi. Now again, on the homework, these should be rounded to the nearest tenth for you. So make sure that you guys round those to the nearest tenth. Then everything else should be pretty cut and dry. Lastly, we need to go ahead and graph this. So first we graph our center at 1, -4, which is this point right here. We then do our radius, 3 points away from each of those. So I go up 3, to the right 3, down 3, and left 3. From there, I can kind of connect all these points to create a nice circle for us. And that's it. That's it. Just keep in mind, you should know these equations, 2 pi r and pi r squared. You should know how to find the diameter from the radius. And then everything else is what we just covered in the last slide as well. So go ahead and try out this next one. Write the equation of the circle. That's all we're looking for. We have the circle here with center at 4, 5. And a point on the circle at 8, 5. So go ahead and give that one a try. All right. So, first off, looking at this, our center is the point 4, 5. Our radius, well, if I just were to draw a radius here, it's going from 4, 5 to 8, 5. So from 4 to 8, that's 4 away. I'm not moving up or down at all, so I know that's a straight line, and it should just be x1 minus x2, which gives me 4. So this is just a length of 4. I can also just count 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so our radius is 4. Let's go ahead and write that down as well. Lastly, we plug it into our equation. Our equation, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where where h, k, and r are all numbers. So from here, we have x minus 4 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals, well, our radius is 4, so that give us 4 squared, which is 16. Now again, I got this 4 and this 5 from HK, our center. So that's where they come from. And we're done. This is the equation of the circle shown. There's all the work once again. Now again, on the homework, these are going to be plus signs. So the numbers that you'd plug in on your homework would be -4, -5, 16. So these are the numbers that we'll be looking for you to plug in on the homework. Just pay attention to positives and negatives in here when you're going through. All right, next up. This is how we get to standard form for circles, especially if we're not given it explicitly in this form right up here right away. So we're trying to get from this ax squared plus bx plus cy squared plus dy equals e. We're trying to get from there to here. Now, in this case, a, b, c, d, and e are integers. The main thing that we want is we want a to be equal to c. And the reason I say that is because both of these are connected to a variable squared. So this one has x squared right here. This one has y squared right there. Very important that they're both equal to each other so that we can actually do this method. If they're not equal to each other, then we have some issues. So the first thing that we're going to go ahead and do is we need to complete the square to put these into our preferred form. What is a perfect square? Well, if we recall, it's something like x plus 4 squared. It's a binomial that's the same, that is squared, that's raised to the second power. That's a perfect square. Now, if I were to multiply this out, would I get x squared plus 16? Well, you may think that because you'd be like, okay, well, I just square each of these, x squared, and then 4 squared is 16. However, that's not the case. This is wrong. What we'd actually do is we'd expand this out. X plus 4 squared is the same as x plus 4 multiplied by x plus 4. If I were to FOIL this, first, outside, inside, last, the order that I distribute, I get x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. It's all written right here. Combining like terms, we get x squared plus 8x plus 16. So we should get a trinomial from a perfect square if I were to multiply it all out. Now, the important thing that you guys need to know for this section is this equation right here. C is equal to half of b squared. That's how we're always going to find our new c value here. Now, if you're like, what are you talking about c value? Remember, these are trinomials. These are all written as ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we're trying to find out our new c value. And as we can see in these examples down here, we have an ax squared plus bx, and we're missing our c value. So we're just trying to find c values here. Now, if we find the right c value, it will automatically complete the square for us. So for this first one, if I want to find out the c value here, I take half of 6, so c is equal to half of 6 squared. Well, half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I just put a 9 there. That's it. All right, our next one. Go ahead and try out this one. What would be our new c value? Well, half of -12 is -6. -6 squared is equal to 36. So our new c value is 36. What about for the third one? Well, the third one, half of -20 is -10. -10 squared is 100. And then our final one, I know that you guys don't like decimals or fractions, but that's okay. You'll get used to them. Half of 5 is 2.5. 2.5 squared is 6.25. And that's how you complete the square. That's how you find your c values. That's half the battle here. So if you can do this each time, if you can find your new c value using this equation, you should be in pretty good shape to complete the square and convert this to this. So let's see how completing the square will actually move us from here to here. Now, hopefully you've noticed a perfect square looks very similar to x minus h squared. That's where we're trying to get to. So if I were to be able to complete the square, if I were able to go from this process, work my way backwards and get to x plus 4 squared, well, all of a sudden I have part of the center of my circle. So that's our goal. We want to go from a perfect square trinomial to a perfect square, which will lead us to the equation of a circle. So, how do you find the value? You take half your b value and square it. So that's, again, this equation right here, extremely important equation for you guys to know to complete the square. Not only will this be very useful when you're trying to solve the equation of a circle, but you guys will be using it a lot next year. Completing the square, doing all that type of thing, where you're trying to go ahead and factor, that's going to be a very, very large portion of the first, I'd say, couple weeks of Algebra 2 for certain. So make sure that you guys are kind of ready for it. So, algebra review. Solve for x by completing the square. So let's go ahead and do this. So first off, this is how I go ahead and I go through these things. I write out my equation once again. However, if I notice here, we're not having our c value shown. So I'm going to go ahead and leave a blank space for our c value. So I have x squared minus 6x plus blank equals 16 plus blank. Now, the reason I have two blanks is because if I were to find a new c value only on the left side, that would no longer keep our equation equivalent. So what I do to one side, what I add to one side, I must add to the other side of my equation. If I don't, I mess up. So from here, I can find my c value. C is equal to half of b squared, which is equal to, well, my b value is negative 6, so half of negative 6 is 3, negative 3. Negative 3 times itself is 9. So I add 9 to both sides here. All right. I will go ahead and keep working on it here. So, at this point, we added 9 to both sides. On this side, I can now factor. On the other side, I'm just going to go ahead and combine those. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 25. Now, here's a little trick for you guys. Whenever you're completing the square, you can do this. When you took half your b value, we ended up with negative 3. When I make my double bubble, it's going to be that value repeated. So we see the negative 3 here, it goes into our double bubble. That's what goes inside our double bubble, whatever our b value is halved. So that negative 3 has to go in here. And then that's still equal to 25. From here, I can go ahead and combine these, and this gives me x minus 3 squared equals 25. Now we're trying to solve here, so we're not quite done yet. At this point, and if you were thinking, okay, I'm trying to put this into the equation of a circle, this is awesome. You have your x minus h squared. We'd have to do the same thing with y, and then we have our radius squared right over here. So we're already doing it correctly. So if I were to take the square root of both sides now, because I want to solve, and I want to get rid of this square here, I take the square root of both sides. We're left with x minus 3 equals plus or minus 5. It's plus or minus because I took the square root of a number. From here, x minus 3 equals 5. That's my first equation. X minus 3 equals negative 5 is my second equation. I add 3 to both sides, and we're left with x equals 8. For our second equation, I add 3 to both sides. We're left with x equals negative 2. So those are our two answers for this equation right up here, this quadratic. Now, again, not too difficult. It just takes time. And it is a process of, it's the same steps repeatedly. So this isn't ever going to change. You're just going to keep doing these same steps each time. All right, our second equation, x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. This time we're going to go ahead and start by getting rid of our c value, because this isn't a perfect square trinomial. And if it's not a perfect square trinomial, I need to move my c value over so I can go ahead and make it a perfect square trinomial. So I subtract 1 from both sides, which leaves me with x squared plus 4x plus blank equals -1 plus blank. Now, I find my new c value here to get started. And to do that, I take half my b value, which is 4, and I take half of it, which gives me 2, and I square it, which gives me 4. So I now put this new 4 in for both my blanks, and that's where it goes. From here, we're now left with x squared plus 4x plus 4. Again, I just brought this down. And on the right side of my equation, I just combine like terms. 4 plus -1 gives me 3. Now, we can go ahead and factor this out. And again, if we remember our shortcut, when I took half of my 4, I took half my b value, that's the number that goes inside my bubbles. So half of 4 is 2. What goes inside both bubbles is a positive 2. So I have x plus 2 times x plus 2. If you notice over here, it was -3. These were both negative here. So it's still, the sign still stays with each of these. So keep that in mind. So we're left with x plus 2 times x plus 2 equals 3. I can combine the left side because they're the same value, and I can make it squared. X plus 2 squared equals 3. I take the square root of both sides to get rid of this square. I'm left with x plus 2 equals plus or minus radical 3. Lastly, we want to get x by itself. So I subtract 2 from both sides, and that leaves us with x is equal to -2 plus radical 3, or -2 minus radical 3. And those are our two answers. Completing the square takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, but it is a process, and that process won't change. The more you guys practice these, the better that you'll get at them, and this is a very key skill for you guys to move forward in your math classes. So make sure that you guys practice these a lot. You'll get lots of practice in the summer packet over the summer for Algebra 2, and then also you guys will just get a lot of practice at the start of next year. But very important that you guys do know how to do these, and that you guys get more and more comfortable with these as you continue practicing. If you're not okay with them right now, that's okay. Just make sure that you guys continue watching these. Watch these videos over if you need extra help on them, and also try and get the practice in. The more practice that you get with these, the better off you'll be. All right, here we go. Is x squared minus 4x plus y squared plus 6y equal to 48 the equation of a circle? Find the radius and the center by completing the square. So, if you noticed, I drew this line right here. The reason I did that is because on the left side, I just have x's. On the right side, I just have y's, and I'm not counting anything past the equal sign. So, if I break these into two separate equations, and here's my line drawn once again. Oops, sorry. Here's my line drawn once again. I now have x squared minus 4x plus blank plus y squared plus 6y plus blank equals 48. Now I complete the square with each of these boxes, and I'm going to keep them separated. So, again, I have two boxes on the same side of the equation. I'm going to start with the red first. Half of -4 is -2. -2 squared is 4. So that's what goes inside this box. So I add a 4, and then I add a 4 to the other side as well. Because what I do to one side of my equation, I must do to the other side. And the sides of the equation are always determined by the equal sign. From here, we focus on the blue equation. So y squared plus 6y equals 9. Well, half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I add a 9 inside the box and also to the other side. Now, the reason that I chose the 6 and the -4 is because those are attached to the variable without an exponent. So it's attached to the exponent of 1, essentially. So that's why I choose those ones. And that's what you'll always do. You'll look for the variable that's just by itself. It doesn't have an exponent attached to it. That's what you take half of. All right. At this point, we need to create our double bubbles. So I'm going to have a bubble just for this, for the red. I'm going to have a bubble just for the blue, and then the radius squared is just going to go ahead and become what the radius squared is. So, if we look at this, we have x minus 2 times x minus 2, And the reason I got the negative 2 is because when I took half my b value, if you can imagine, and I took half of my b value for the blue, I got 3. So it'd be y plus 3 and y plus 3. So again, the 3's are coming from right when we took half of it, and the negative 2's, I can say the same thing. And that's all equal to, well, 48 plus 4 plus 9 gives us 61. From here, we're almost done. These are the same exact thing being multiplied, x minus 2 times x minus 2. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those, and it becomes x minus 2 squared. Same thing with the y plus 3's. So the y plus 3 times y plus 3 becomes y plus 3 squared. And all of a sudden, this is looking more and more like the equation of a circle. That's equal to 61. So it's now finished. Our center, and if you recall, the equation of our circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So our center should be, positive 2, negative 3, and our radius is radical 61. And the reason it's positive 2, negative 3 is because, again, we take the opposite values of these. So if this is negative 2, it'd be positive 2. If this was positive 3, it'd be negative 3. So that's how we're able to find this. And, of course, our radius is whatever the radical 61 is. So whatever is on the other side of the equation, I take the square root of that. That's our radius. All right. Our last question was that. If you guys have any questions for me on this, please let me know. Other than that, your homework is posted in Schoology. If you guys need anything else, again, let me know. I'm happy to help. I'll try and get some extra algebra practice in for you guys next week so that you can look through that before the end of the school year if you'd really like to. Of course, that won't be due for any credit or anything. That's just to give you guys some extra help making sure that you're ready for Honors Algebra 2. Other than that, thank you guys for this year. I do miss being your teacher quite a bit. I hope that you guys are doing well. Have a great rest of your day. And, of course, if you need anything, stop on by office hours. Come say hi. Whatever you guys need to do. I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day. Take care.